Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, podcast lovers and comic book fans. Welcome to this, the inaugural edition of the Primal Paper Comics podcast, featuring your host, Manos, the Hand of Fate. The Primal Paper Comics podcast is, of course, brought to you by Primal Paper Comics. Visit our website today at www.primalpapercomics.com. And now, your host, Manos.
Sisters, it's me, the real Manos, and this is what I believe will be the first in Primal Paper Comics podcasts. Is that the title we're going with?
I was calling it the Primal Paper Podcast. Primal. That's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, I know.
I had to record that intro like 4 times. The Primal Paper Comics Podcast.
There you go. Say it 3 times fast. We dare you. I am the real Manos, also known in the real world as Justin Cristelli. And with me is the amazing Jeff Hewitt, who is the creator, renderer, and god of the ends. Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
So we're just going to be chatting with you for this first episode of what we're hoping can be a series. First, we're going to talk about Primal Paper in general as far as creation process, and then maybe go off book and maybe just chat about a few things going on in comics.
Yeah, and we're planning on doing this pretty regularly. At least once a month is what we're hoping for, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we can bring you the newest and latest and greatest news from Primal Paper, and we're both huge geeks that like to talk about comic books and stuff. So
yeah, and I've been wanting to. I told you before we started recording. I've been wanting to do something like this with you for quite some time. And once you mentioned this to me last week, I was like, you know what, this is perfect.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So let's talk about how Primal Paper Comics came to be. Now you and I have known each other for
80 what
something
1988?
Like 88, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
we did a summer theater program in high school together, and amusingly enough, at the time we were both actually developing what would eventually become our comic books. Many decades later.
Yes. Here's a fun fact. A lot of I don't know how many people really know this who follow me, but you were the first to draw him outside of me. I sketched him off of a Todd McFarlane Prowler photo just to get some kind of aspect of what the character is, and I brought it to you, and you for the first time out of somebody else besides me drew him, and you were the one. I had his knight symbol really small on his chest, and you're the one who had it splashed all over the chest.
Yeah, I think I stole that from like a Marvel character, Eunice or the Unicorn. I don't know what the hell he was.
That's fine. I'm sure he's fantastic.
My Little Pony Man or something like that.
He has billions of fans.
Which now, amusingly enough, now means something completely different.
Yeah. But he went through a bunch of different costume designs where the knight symbol got smaller again. And when I was prepping him for this new series, I kind of like, almost in a weird way, was kind of like, rebooting the character. I was like, looking at what I wrote for years and kind of trimming the fat and, figuring out what worked best. And when I was redesigning the costume, he had a cape, and I took the cape off and put a trench coat on him, and last time he had a design, his symbol was really small, actually on a clasp, and it looked really cool, but I decided I wanted something different, so I went back to the original design. So I don't know, I guess I could credit you for the way his symbol looks.
Well, I was actually just reading something about the creation of Spider-Man, and Ditko had a studio mate who says what was his name? I forget the guy's name.
Which guy?
It was a studio mate of Ditko who actually contributed like a minor thing to Spider-Man.
Oh. I don't know his name.
I'll look up his name. Hand me my laptop over there. But the story goes that Ditko came back to a studio, and this guy was like an art school buddy of Ditko's, and they were sharing the space.
Yeah.
And he worked on, I think what he contributed was the way the the web shooters worked.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about it, and he's like, my contribution to the creation of Spider-Man was virtually nil, is how he says it. So I think...
One of my favorite things about, especially the early Spider-Man comics, was how detailed the web shooters looked. And I remember that really captivated me. When obviously, even I am not old enough to be there during the first time where Spider-Man debuted. But as a kid, they were Marvel was publishing all those reprint books, and there was an exciting time when they went back and to the beginning with Marvel Tales and started reprinting.
Yeah, I used to collect those.
Yeah, I did too. And I was
Eric
really
Stanton, that's the guy's name.
Eric Stanton, okay. I was really excited, and one of the things that really captivated me about those early issues was they would, in backups, they would show you how they supposedly worked, which seemed totally plausible.
Yeah, I remember those sketches. Ditko used to do some of those, if I remember correctly.
It'd be like usually a one page, like, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man. This is how my stuff works," and stuff like that.
And DC used to do stuff like that as well. They used to do things like cutaway shots of the JLA headquarters or the Teen Titans headquarters, and you could see where Beastman's or whatever the fuck his name was.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to curse on YouTube?
I don't know. We should have discussed that.
We probably should have talked about that. I will refrain, and we'll look. I will try very hard to refrain.
Well, if we're just posting these on my YouTube channel, then we can curse. But if we're
if it's monetized,
yeah, if we're putting on, yeah, well, no, I mean even when it's monetized.
Oh, all right.
I don't care about that stuff. But if we're putting this on the Primal Paper stuff.
Yeah, probably a good point.
All right, we'll try to do our best.
I will. I'll go back through and bleep that out or something. I'll put a boing over top of it or something.
Gotcha. But anyway, what were you saying?
Well, let's get back. Let's and we're gonna. One of the stories that we wanted to talk about actually deals with early Marvel history. But let's stay on with Primal Paper.
Yeah, let's talk about early Primal Paper history.
Yes, much more important for the people. Not really.
If only somebody will write a book about us, like 50 years from now. Like, did you know Justin Cristelli was actually an asshole?
And it would be that horrible chapter where Forrester got the rights to all of our characters and took our books from us.
It's like, oh, he fooled us all.
All right, so, and this is a longer conversation than we probably want to have, but we both worked on developing our concepts through the better part of 2 decades.
Yeah.
And you had actually you had met with editors at different companies, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse.
Dark Horse, yeah. That was that was fun. Pitching a character that had a logo that looked just like theirs. It's like,
yeah.
I promise I wasn't doing this to suck up.
Please don't sue me. So the thing that maybe some of our younger listeners might have a hard time understanding is that before there was a revolution in digital publishing that has made everything that we do possible. And when you and I were in high school, and even coming into college, and even coming into the late '90s, the ability to publish your own book was very expensive. You could do it, but you would have to order thousands of copies of something, and make a significant investment in something that most likely was not going to return that kind of monetary investment. So getting investors wasn't really a possibility. Whereas now, anybody for a couple $100 you can publish a comic book.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward through the development hell that we went through, the desert that we wandered through the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
And get to and I guess partially the 2000s. And get to the defining moment of the creation of Primal Paper.
I would have to say that probably is with people who aren't even sitting here. Bob France, Vince White, and Mike Federale, actually, who kind of got the ball started with publishing his own book, and chatting with Bob France, who he and the two of them are friends, and kind of they got that idea started. Now they wanted to change the name because Federale got in some trouble with some guy who
got a cease and desist letter.
Cease and desist letter, like saying you can't call your company Paper Tiger
Right.
No, I'm going to sue you. And Mike was like, okay, whatever. And couldn't come up with an idea. And I believe it was Vince, right? Who came up with the...
I wasn't there,
okay.
so I don't know.
Well, okay. I think, I'm
I've
not going
heard
to say
that.
100%. I think it was Vince who came up with the new logo and the creation. And
now, at that point, we're talking, Mike Federale was publishing, at that point, a book called The Baku.
The Baku hadn't come out yet. It was Skyrocket.
It was actually, so Skyrocket was actually his first book.
Yeah, under the label Paper Tiger. And it was kind of meant to be part of the brand with 41 and Willpower. And
41 being published by, let's not assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. 41 being published by, written and created by Bob France.
Bob France, yeah.
And The Legend of Willpower, written and created and drawn by Vince White.
Yeah, and I had this open invitation, like, from Bob and Mike, like, if you get this Red Knight thing off the ground, we'll be happy to, talk. And I did get it off the ground.
Now let's take a moment and because I've known Bob for a number of years too, unrelated to Primal Paper.
I know. Isn't that weird how we both knew Bob?
It's fun. Well, we both used to hang out at this coffee shop.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was kind of a focal point for a lot of stuff in the area. So how did you meet Bob France? Because he's an interesting character.
He is. I met him through Federale, actually. I met Federale at the Chesapeake Central Library's Fantasy.
And you had like a table there? Or?
I had a table, and he had a table right next to me, so we started talking. And he was telling me about, what he had done to, get the Skyrocket published. Because I'd seen it on the comic shelves over at Trilogy Comics. And I was interested in it, and I actually got to talk to the guy. And through him, I discovered how easy it was. Now, the thing I was gonna do Red Knight as a series of pulp novels, because I just couldn't get the comic done. It would just be the cheapest, easiest way to get it. I would just have to pay somebody to do a cover, and I'd put it on Lulu.com, and then I would just be able to do the story. But after talking to him, I thought, this actually isn't that hard. Time has passed, and connecting with artists, getting the whole thing set up. I don't have to go through Diamond. So yeah, this is what happened. And I met, in visiting and chatting with Federale is where I met Bob France, which to me was almost surreal at the time, because for those of you who don't live in Virginia, Bob
used to be a radio
personality on 96X, and quite a popular one too, I might add. So it was really weird, like suddenly chatting with this guy I had been listening to on the radio for years, and suddenly we're kind of buddies. Wow, this is weird.
Yeah, it's fairly funny. When I met Bob, he was not on the radio yet.
Yeah.
He was in college.
Oh, you knew him pre-radio,
and,
okay.
And he was, he was just this really goofy kid. He used to like to show people various parts of his body randomly. He was a pretty crazy guy. We used to play poker. But and he used to. When I met Bob, he was hosting an open mic at this coffee shop that we mentioned earlier, Casablanca Cafe, which is no more, sadly. Mm-hmm. So you met Bob through Federale.
Yeah.
And one of the things you talk about as far as finding new artists, and this is, again, the difference between the 80s and 90s and now, the internet has so made all of this possible, whether it's through social media, connecting with people who draw, connecting with other creators, pushing your work out there. It's kind of a double-edged sword because it's so easy. There's a lot of people out there doing it. There's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of work that maybe shouldn't necessarily be being published because there's no that barrier to entry is much lower than it used to be.
Yeah, not everything is Ninja Turtles.
No.
And yeah, I actually found artists through. I found my main artist, JC Grande, through DeviantArt.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is a great website, and you can use it to actually find comic artists. It's not just looking up perverted shots of cartoon characters. There's actually legitimate work on it, and that's why I put an ad on it. And he was actually had a number of really talented people.
Well, DeviantArt is huge, just even beyond the indie scene. I mean, there's there are major comic book artists who have DeviantArt accounts.
I've even communicated with a couple big names. Just like, hey, that's a cool looking piece, and they'll actually say thanks. I was like, oh my god, that.
Yeah, and then it's a big difference between the days where you had to go to New York to run into Stan Lee or Steve Ditko. Or,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, the internet definitely has shrunk the world. I mean, I contributed to Amy Reeder's Kickstarter for Halloween Eve last year, and even communicated with her a little bit, and that was just amazing. I mean, part of my reward was a sketch of any character I chose, and I chose Martha Brown, one of my characters, and she actually told me she liked drawing it. I was like, oh, like drawing my character?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That was an exciting email.
So you meet Federale, and then you meet Bob. How do you meet Vince?
Vince, actually, I didn't meet Vince in person for a little while until, Federale was doing meet and greets at Comic Kings, and I couldn't make every one of them, and I just eventually met Vince, and he already had announced the coming of the Legend of Willpower through Primal Paper. So I'm not too sure how he hooked up with the guys. You'd have to ask Vince or Bob about that.
Interesting. Okay.
But I remember looking at the book. I remember looking at the initial art on that book, and I was like, "Wow, we're kind of doing something really impressive." Because I've dealt with local artists in the past. Oh,
there's fireworks.
Fireworks.
They must have known we were doing our podcast. They're celebrating.
We are recording this on June 7th? This is June 7th? 8th. June 8th. In Norfolk, there is a little something called Harborfest.
Is that Harborfest?
Yeah, this is Harborfest, right?
See how much I pay attention.
Yeah, I know. What does Harborfest celebrate anyway besides boats? I mean, that's it?
The harbor?
The harbor, yeah.
Fireworks and beer?
Yeah, so there'll be a little fireworks here. Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up. But, what was I saying? Vince. I was incredibly impressed by Vince, and I was already impressed with Skyrocket and 41 from Federale and Bob. And I've worked with like local, people before, and to variant degrees of failure. And I was getting a look at what they were doing. It's like, oh wow, I really want to be a part of this because these guys are talented and these guys are doing the work. And I was very excited to get Red Knight out there, Red Knight to be a part of this.
Well, so you got your artist, and that was the very talented J.C. Grande.
Yes.
Who is from
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
El Salvador, yes.
I don't think that's how they actually say it. Somewhere, some El Salvador. What the is wrong with that man's accent?
We don't talk like that.
Now they're suddenly French.
But, and at the same time, I was also communicating with the also awesome Shiloh Pinfield, who went on to do issue 6. Because I'd pretty much decided on working with JC, and then Shiloh emailed me, asking if the position had been filled, and kind of already had. But I got a look at her work, and I was like, "Oh, this is
she's very good."
work.
I've actually used her on a short story in the back pages of one of my books.
And yeah, she eventually went to do issue 6, and she's doing the cover for issue 7.
She's out of New York City.
Yeah, she's in New York City.
I don't know if she's like going to school up there or.
So I spent like a few weeks going back and forth, like, oh man, what am I going to do? I mean, I have too many talented people who want to do this. Because before I had no talented people who wanted to do anything with me. And now
I'm sure. Much. I mean, just on the off chance that some of those people might be listening to this, I'm sure that they were perfectly talented, and that things just didn't work out.
No. I didn't.
No, they sucked.
Yeah. No, I did have talented people who worked with me before and trying to develop it, but for like 10 years, I had nobody.
Right.
It was just me. Since my last serious.
And again, I mean, it illustrates the difference that the internet makes in being able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I was going to do it as pulp novels. For a while, I just couldn't find a serious artist who wanted to.
I can't find anyone that can draw.
Yeah, that was the part of the problem too. And I was like, ugh, I'm an awful artist. I've tried to sketch designs to show JC, and I can't even do that. I mean, It's horrible. It's very, very embarrassing.
So I met Vince. I met Vince outside of my local comic book stores, Local Heroes. I guess he was dropping off books or something, or checking to see how they were selling, and it was an odd running into him because he's not really on this side of the water. Vince lives in where does he live? Hampton.
Yeah,
he lives in Hampton, which is kind of it's about a 45-minute hike from here.
You have to go through a bridge.
A tunnel.
Yeah. We have the longest tunnel ever.
And you had been running. You and I had been kind of talking about, the fact that I was really impressed that you had gotten Red Knight done, because I know how long you've worked on it, and and there was this whole man, Justin just went after his dreams, and he's making it happen, and I had a lot of respect for that, and at that time I was starting to think about, I'm a graphic designer, and my big thing was I can't pay for the art and do the book the way I'd like to do it. Which is on a monthly schedule. Yeah. 75 issues is what I've got plotted out. And so I started playing around with some Photoshop, photo manipulation, which is how my book is done. It's all photo manip. And I think I had submitted a cover. You had a cover contest for Red Knight.
Yeah.
And so I had submitted that cover, and you were still kind of judging them. And you didn't pick my cover, you bastard.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I apologize. It was just horrible.
I make him too dark. Red Knight's supposed to be a happy guy, and I always draw him like a pissed off Batman.
He does always look pissed off when you draw him.
Oh, I have a lot of anger issues. But I ran into Vince coming out of Local Heroes, and he just started pitching Willpower to me. He was like, hey, I do this Willpower book. Have you seen it? Trying to get me going inside and buy it. I was like, oh, no. But I've seen it because you're with the Primal Paper guys, right? And he was like, yeah, I am. And I was like, yeah, I know Justin Cristelli. I was like, actually, I just did a cover contest submission. He was like, oh, which one is it? And I told him. He was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And he ended up giving me a copy of Willpower there.
Yeah.
And then finally, I kind of took the plunge with you and was like, all right, I want to do this. And you had been pushing me for a little while on it. You were like,
I had been.
If you want to, I'd be happy to help you do anything you'd want. If you need to get hooked up with an artist. And I'm like, I can't really pay an artist, but let me see. And so finally, I had a fit of like a 4-day obsessive work marathon where I hacked out the first issue and showed it to you. And I was like, tell me what you think. And then you had liked it enough to get a meeting with Vince, and we both came together on it. And then there was Forrester. Yeah, you met Forrester at another coffee shop?
Forrester, now he contacted me on the Facebook page.
Okay.
And this is about around the time that Federale decided to go off and do his own thing.
Right.
Mike
is a trailblazer. He's a very independent guy. It's not necessarily his thing to be in a group.
Yeah, I don't think this is what he was. When this all started, I don't think this was his plan. To create a group. I think it kind of started out as fun, and then it just wasn't his thing.
Perfectly fine. He's still making Skyrocket. He's still doing
Skyrocket
his book.
6 came out and was really good. And,
I actually thought that the book has gotten a lot better with the last issue.
The art was really good on that one.
I was very impressed with the art on the last issue.
I've told him I still talk to him, behind the scenes, like what we're doing, what he's doing, and stuff like that. And I.
I mean,
I told him in the past, like anytime if you want to be part of us again, please.
There's a local comics community of creators, and we're all very supportive of each other's efforts.
Yeah. I was very happy that there was no nasty split.
And as we do more episodes, it'd be great to get Mike on the show.
That would be cool. Anyway,
guy.
this was the point where he was kind of departing, and it was obvious, well, I need to, group this together and see, who wants to do what. And at that same time, Forrester had contacted me and said, hey, I got a book, and I'm thinking about putting it together. It's maybe could I join Primal Paper? I'm like, yeah, sure, let me take a look. And I saw his pages. He sent me, some work.
Phenomenally talented.
And I was instantly excited. It's I have to get this guy to be part of us.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit of an odd guy, but his talent is just, and he's a double threat because he can write as well as he can draw.
Yes. And also the fact that it was so much different than all the other books. Like nobody else was doing this type of.
And he's also much younger than us. Like Vince is about our age.
Yeah,
Bob is about 10 years younger.
Yeah, we're all kind of the same generation.
Whereas Forrester is in his early 20s.
I think he's 27,
mid-20s,
something like that. He's mid to late 20s, and yeah, I mean, because like there's two. You and Bob are doing like post-apocalyptic stories. I'm doing like a straight up, superhero book, and actually, so is Willpower.
Willpower, I think, is a little bit more of an all ages.
It is. It's the most all ages book.
Probably a little bit more science fiction influence as well.
True. And I don't know. It's like Willpower is sort of the DC title, and Red Knight is probably the Marvel title.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think of Peter David, Tom DeFalco, those kind of guys when I read Red Knight.
Yeah.
I'm
very influenced by Peter.
I don't know if I would say that Willpower is more of a DC book. I mean, I know there's the obvious parallels to Superman.
Yeah.
With the character. Willpower, for those who don't know, is he's a young man whose father is a scientist, and there was a horrible accident in which the density of the universe was massively decreased, and it affected everything and everybody except for Willpower.
Yeah.
Willpower is the original density, and so he's much stronger than everything else that's around him. I'm dropping into Vince. I'm dropping into Vince's voice a little bit as I.
It's hard not to pitch the book and not get into his voice.
I know. The legend of Willpower.
It's you have to take a step back. I love the way he pitches his book.
Icons, man. It all has to be icons. We're going to have Vince, and we will eventually have the other Primal Paper creators on the show. We were only able to actually get the two of us tonight, but we'll be working out. We almost had Bob on, but Bob is actually currently at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he's having a lot of fun down there.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much fun because he's married, but
I was disappointed I couldn't go to this year's show. We
wanted to, but I mean, it really just kind of came down to the financials. Didn't make sense on the heels of the last con that we did.
Yeah.
And honestly, I went to PhillyCon, and I wasn't going to PhillyCon in a professional capacity, but I ended up kind of plugging the book a little bit here and there.
And plus, we did, I
handed out cards.
That's good.
I didn't actually tell you this. I handed out cards at PhillyCon.
Oh, that's good.
I was like, free comic book, just go to this site and download it.
Because I spent some money. I spent some money on the Free Comic Book Day special.
That was really kind of what sunk.
Yeah.
And what sunk Heroes Con for us is that we spent a significant chunk of money putting out the Free Comic Book Day special, and we were happy to do it.
Yeah, I am super proud of it, and you know what? I think our special looked better than some professional companies.
I mean, I don't want to. I entertain hopes of maybe writing for some of those professional companies someday. So I don't want to name them here, but yes, I agree with you.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm not going to name any of them.
DC, New 52.
But yeah, I was.
Neither one of us ever really want to write for DC Comics, right? Neither one of us want to write for DC Comics ever.
I wanted to 2 years ago
before they ruined it. Right? We're going to talk about DC Comics a little bit later.
I suppose so, but
I know some of your fans have disagreements with you about that, and I wanted to.
They're wrong.
Well, we can talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, but all right.
I mean, that pretty much brings us up to where we are. So what's going on with Red Knight now? What issue are you on now?
I'm
for anybody that is just happening into this podcast, you should probably explain who Red Knight is.
Yeah, Red Knight. That's my comic book. I write and create it, and I have some wonderful artists who work on the title. There's J.C. Grande. There's Shiloh Penfield, and in the Free Comic Book Day special, there is James Harmon. I hope to use James more in the future too. I think all three artists. I can't believe my luck in working with them. They're all three magnificent. The Red Knight title is a superhero book that takes place in Norfolk, Virginia, and it takes place in this world where there has been superheroes for a couple of generations, and actually at least since maybe 100 years they've been adventurers. And they eventually became superheroes in the 50s with the coming of Captain Danger. And Todd McLean is a young man who grew up in this world and wanted to be a superhero. And through a kind of horrible circumstance, actually, he gained super strength. So And instead of really becoming like this dark Avenger wanting revenge, he decides to go by example and continue with the plan to be a superhero. But once he grows up, the rules had changed, and you now have to have a license to be a superhero, and you kind of surrender everything when you go in to be a superhero. If they don't arrest and capture you first, if you just surrender, it kind of doesn't matter. They take you where they want you. It's not like I mean, it's a lot like if you join the Navy and go, hey, you know what, I want to work out of my house. And I live in Richmond. I want to be in the Navy in Richmond. Like, no, screw you.
You're gonna be in the Navy where we want you to be.
We're gonna take you out for 6 months.
So we've got the Red Knight. Needs a license to become a superhero. Doesn't have a license.
But
he's fighting crime anyway in his chosen city of Norfolk.
Yes.
What happens to Red Knight if he gets caught?
Well, if he's caught, he's arrested, and he's kind of put through the process. I mean, he has to. If he's arrested at this point, he'll probably have to pay some fines. He may serve jail time, and if he's lucky, he maybe can work out a deal to get a license.
Or maybe they throw him in prison.
If they don't throw him in prison, I mean,
is there a term? I mean, for something like that, like if you get caught fighting crime in the Red Knight universe without a license, how long can they put you away for?
That kind of depends on what you did while you were fighting crime. Did you cause a lot of damage? Did you get people killed? The sentences can kind of, I guess, fit the crime. Like if you've done a lot of damage, if you've done more damage than good, you're probably going to jail for a while, or at the very least serve some really bad fines.
So we've got this young man who, through no fault of his own, was given superpowers.
Yeah.
And he's always been kind of a superhero fanboy, but he doesn't want to go through and get a license because he's afraid of the government. Why doesn't he want to get a license?
Because he doesn't want to. Well, first off, they're really hard to get, and he has to get a government sponsor.
All right.
And first off, he doesn't know how to get a government sponsor. And now now that he's taken the steps to be a superhero.
So he's like a young indie comics producer.
He is, yeah.
Who doesn't know how to get in at Marvel or DC and decides to do his own book.
The metaphor is not lost on me.
I'm stretching it here. But,
the metaphor is not lost. And I hope it's not lost on people who read it. But I keep seeing the fact that his situation gets a little more difficult the more he does this. Like, the more he puts on the costume, the more it goes out there, the less likely he's going to get a receptive welcoming from the government.
And what about the people of Norfolk? What do they think of him?
I don't know.
Is he like a hot button issue? I mean,
it is a little bit of a hot button issue because he's supposed to be an outlaw. He's supposed to be not appreciated, but there will be a growing amount of people. The more he does stuff, the more he does good, the more he's kind of going to win over people. I am thinking about adding this a little bit more, where there will be people who don't particularly like him, and there will be actually. I make mention of this guy who's been blogging about him and really hates him. Oh, I was thinking about Torgo90 or something.
Torgo90.
I created this guy named Torgo90.
He's a blogger.
He's a blogger.
Those damn bloggers.
Yeah, I know. Kind of a guy like I don't know, Amazing Atheist or How the World Works, or some guy like that. And he just lives out.
I don't actually know any of those.
Those are two political bloggers. And I was thinking about having a guy like that, kind of bust his chops all the time.
Right.
Originally, when I created him in the '90s, I was going to have him be a radio DJ. And I was like, well, I don't know. Nowadays, there'd probably be some blogger who'd go on and
people even know what radio DJs are anymore?
I think so.
Are there still radio?
They still exist.
It's been so long. I mean, I listen to NPR every now and then.
Talk radio guys, I was thinking.
Okay, all right.
But
that would make them a little bit older, though, I think.
That's true. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of having a blogger be, I don't know, maybe younger. I don't know, when I've been thinking about it, it's he's kind of fits the bill of, it'd be hilarious if Red Knight's J. Jonah Jameson is like a 12-year-old who's been trolling him. But
nobody wears belt buckles anymore, Red Knight.
Yeah, your costume sucks.
1984 called and they want their costume back. That's awesome.
But anyway,
so the Red Knight is getting help from a supporting cast of characters, without which he would probably be screwed.
Oh, he would have been dead or arrested. not for his supporting cast, actually. He has a couple of mentors, and that actually started, I'm really proud of myself, that actually started really early in the creation process. Back when I was right out of high school, I was thinking, about, kind of the mentors of my favorite superheroes. And I thought he needed one. So I can't remember who came first. I can't remember if it was Nathan or Martha, but I definitely wanted to do a cop kind of partner. Actually, what's interesting, what started me wasn't so much Commissioner Gordon, which everybody points out, but he definitely was an influence. But
if I were to,
what's that?
Nathan reminds me of an old supporting character in Daredevil. A little bit more, much more so than Commissioner Gordon, actually. I forget the guy's Turk.
Turk? Oh, you mentioned. Oh, that's funny. You reminds you of Turk?
A little.
I've never heard that before.
A little bit, yeah.
That's hilarious. See, I've had. I think Captain Logan from Geekvolution suggested he's. Or was that Dan from Geekvolution? One of them mentioned they remind him of Microchip from Punisher.
Okay, all right. Not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that ends up becoming a much more and dealing with the darkness of the Punisher makes him for a much different character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just and I'm fuzzy on the memory, and I don't know why, because I couldn't really tell you anything about Turk anymore. I just remember an issue that I read from 70s Daredevil with Turk in it.
Yeah.
Which is probably more closer to 80s Daredevil. Maybe late 70s.
Late 70s, early 80s. He was on 79 to 82, something like that for his first run.
I'm fuzzy on it.
But
childhood.
But there was, I definitely wanted to put him with a cop character, and I was thinking about Jean DeWolf from Spider-Man.
Right.
And I'd often thought that it was too bad that she was killed off and not replaced. She was kind of a replacement for Captain Stacy and Gwen's father in a way.
And I get a little fuzzy on this because there was the Ultimate Marvel Jean DeWolf who was she was a crooked cop.
Oh, well,
she wasn't a crooked cop in the original.
She was not. She was a good cop.
But she was killed by
the Sin Eater.
That's right.
And she was kind of replacing Gwen's father, Captain Stacy, as sort of Spider-Man's cop liaison or something like that. And then they never replaced Jean DeWolf. So I thought, well, that's too bad. And there was, of course, Commissioner Gordon, and of course, probably one of my bigger influences was Robert Culp's character in Greatest American Hero. I always loved that character.
William Baxter, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I loved the concept of the superhero and the federal agent working together secretly. So that definitely kind of influenced me in a big way.
And Robert Culp was such a huge. I mean, he was like a pretty big deal actor who had kind of faded a little bit by the time we saw him in. Our parents would know Robert Culp from I Spy.
Yeah. And then he just, you're right. He did kind of disappear until Greatest American Hero. But I started thinking about Commissioner Gordon. It was like, what isn't Commissioner Gordon? And he's a white male, and he's not in charge of his relationship with Batman. Batman is definitely, in charge of that. So that's kind of what I did with Martha Brown. Was I wanted her to be an African American woman, and I wanted her to set up the partnership. I wanted her to teach Red Knight the ropes. Like, how do you fight crime? If you just had superpowers, you don't automatically know how to fight crime. You don't know where crime is, especially in a town like Norfolk, which is hardly Detroit or New York or something like that. And
there's a lot of stuff kind of going on under the hood. Of Martha Brown. That there's things. There are things that raise questions in reading her that you haven't addressed yet, but that you have backstory going on that I know that you're looking forward to reveal about her, and we won't spoil any of that.
That's true.
With our secret forbidden knowledge of the Red Knight characters.
There is. I can only say that there's more to Martha than what she's telling us, what she's telling Todd. And of course, there's Nathan, and I love that character. And one of my original concepts of the character was, what if Alfred or Uncle Ben were rednecks, and what kind of what would they bring to the table as far as storytelling and humor and drama. And a character like him, I don't really see that often in superhero comics, and especially done in a positive way. Because he and I are if he was real, he and I would disagree on a lot of subjects. But I want to write him, pretty true to him, but still do him as a good guy. And he's really supportive of Todd. He has, his life was kind of destroyed before he had to move in with Todd's family because he lost his business, he lost his wife to divorce, he lost his family. His kids hate him.
I didn't even realize he had kids.
Yeah, he has 2 kids.
I think does he reference that in one of the?
Not yet, actually.
I was going to say, yeah, all right.
In issue 10, he's going to talk about his kids, and I don't know. In a few more issues after that, we'll probably meet them. But yeah, they dislike him. It was not a good divorce.
So what's in the works of Red Knight right now? What's coming up?
Issue 7 is coming up, and at this moment today, I actually wrote a little bit on issue 9.
Very cool.
And the story arc, it was originally supposed to be a 2-part story arc, but now it's going to be a 3-part story arc because it was just too big to fit into 2 issues. It's called Hero Today, Gone Tomorrow, and it's about the risk of meeting your heroes and seeing another side of them. And essentially, there are some terrorists making some they have some evil plot going on in Norfolk. Red Knight, Martha, and Nathan are going to converge on it. At the same time, the Union of Superheroes, who are filled with Red Knight's favorite heroes growing up, they're going to converge at the same time. And also, this will be the first time his ex-partners will run into him since they hit the big time, and he is still where he is, trying to make it. So we're definitely going to have some, I don't know, a little drama between these characters, and all the while, there's probably going to be the biggest superhero battle I have written so far in the series. I have some big battles in the works in the future, but this is the biggest one, especially issue 8. Issue 8 was so big I couldn't fit the wrap up at the end. It was just too freaking big, so
you pushed it into a third.
And actually, now that I'm on page 6, I realized it was just the right way to go because I still have several scenes going on. It will probably be almost 25 pages, so there was just no way I could have done it as a 2-parter. I hadn't realized how big it gotten. So that's going on. Then in issue 10, we're going to learn a little bit more about Red Knight in his high school days, where we get to see a little more of his origin, a little more of Nathan, and how he kind of hooked up with Todd and his family and stuff like that. And also the origin of the girl Todd McClane kisses in the first scene of issue 1, which she hasn't shown up again since then. So I look forward to bringing her back into the series. And then let's see. After that, I have I don't want to really give too much away about the next story arc after that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm actually starting to work on issue 14 as far as what I want to do for that story. I have a mafia story coming out where I'm going to explain who killed Nolan Sinclair. The mob boss who was killed in issue 3. There's going to be a murder mystery on who killed him. And then there's going to be a big crossover. I shouldn't say crossover. These are my characters. There's going to be a big storyline and featuring one of Todd's favorite heroes growing up, White Shark. And White Shark secretly needs his help. And only Red Knight can help him. So this has to be off the books. And that's going to be a pretty exciting story. Actually, that might be a kind of game changer for the series. So that's kind of what I have going on right now.
Very cool. And I know there's a new issue in the works of 41.
Yes. I was really excited about that. What was it, the day before yesterday?
Yeah, Bob said that
Casually told us too, like,
that's coming
hey,
out.
I'm gonna debut 5. Like, what?
And it's been quite some time since the last issue, so we're all very very excited to see that.
Yeah.
New artists?
What's the name of this artist? You remember?
I don't. And it would take me too long to actually find it by looking it up. I'd have to dig through the Facebook chat. I know it was a young man that he met at Heroes Con who approached his table.
Oh, that's cool.
Bob has not had the best luck with artists. His first artist was fantastic. All of his artists have actually been quite good. His first artist was fantastic, and then realized he was fantastic and started charging fantastic rates. So Bob was like, "Well, I can't pay that." So he got another artist, and then that artist, I think, also became a little expensive for him to work with, and so he's got a new, younger kid. Who, and I'm sure that we will see. I'm sure we will see even more artists from Bob in the future. But it's great to see him pushing out a new issue.
I'm very excited.
I'm a fan of the book. So I mean,
I got to tell you, I thought it was a good book until I got to 4, then I realized it was a great book, and I love it when that happens, where you go, well, this is okay, and then when it pays off, you realize how good the story.
Yeah, and we've been waiting for issue 5.
Yeah.
So
because 4 really left. I mean, I couldn't believe how excited I was when I dropped issue 4. It's like, this is amazing. I love this book.
And then Vince has a bunch of stuff going on. He's been kind of quiet lately.
Vince goes into his he's
been off in the cave working on something that he's going to bring back. Yeah, I know that Dogs and Sailors issue 2 is being worked on.
Yeah.
And then my book is issue 6.
Let's talk about your book for a second.
We can talk. Do
you want to talk about it?
I think we can talk about. We ended up talking about Red Knight quite a bit, and that's great. And I know there's some other things that we want to cover. We don't want the podcast to go too long, so I think we'll save talking about the ends in detail for like the next episode.
Okay.
We can make that kind of the end centric introduction.
All right. Next show we'll talk
briefly. The Ends is basically it's a post-apocalyptic superhero story where the really good superheroes have all disappeared at the end of the world, and the people that are supposed to save us have gone. Nobody knows where they are, and so the third-rate kind of has been not very good superheroes are left to kind of try and. The people you really don't want saving you at the end of the day because they're maybe not so good at it, or they cause a lot of property damage, or they're not maybe even interested in saving you all that much, are what's left. And I say it's an end of the world post-apocalyptic story, but really the Ends is a story about people who aren't very good at their jobs, and they just happen to be superheroes. Issue 6 is going to hit the stands this Wednesday. Issue 7 is in the can. Issue 8, I have actually begun art on issue 8. The art in the book is all photo manipulation, so it may or may not be your cup of tea if you want to check it out. Check us out on if you do a search for Primal Paper on Facebook, you'll get links to all of our we all have individual Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, and you can order any of these books, of course. By visiting www.primalpapercomics.com. All of the books are available in either digital or print format. We'll ship them out to you for a reasonable shipping cost, or you can get it for 99 cents, which is a freaking deal, man. 99 cents for a digital comic. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money to check out some independent books and see if you like them.
Yeah, you can get all 6 of the Ends for like $6.
Yeah.
And the free comic book day special is still available.
And yes, if you want to check the books out without spending 99 cents because you're a cheap skinflint.
It's like, I need 99 cents.
99 cents? How much for just one page? You can get the free comic book day special, which we have left up on our website. It has a story from each of the books. 2 of those are original stories. 2 of them are kind of previews of a number of pages from the first issues. 41 is a preview, and Dawson Sailors as a preview. And then Vince redid his origin for Willpower. Art by Larry Stroman of 90s X Factor fame.
Yeah, a name. We have a...
Well, Vince has a name. We don't have a name.
Yeah, well, okay.
Nobody knows.
And somebody else also, it wasn't just Larry Stallman, it was somebody else doing the first 2 pages.
There was a number of people doing. There were a number of people who worked. I think Vince did some of the pages.
Vince really worked hard.
There's
on
an
that
Italian team that worked on it. Some Forrester actually did coloring for it.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Vince worked really hard on that.
Yeah, great story.
Special.
The art's fantastic. So that's. I think that's enough about Primal Paper. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of comics.
Okay.
I was at PhillyCon. I'll give you the report on PhillyCon.
Yeah. Let's get talking about that.
Man, I spent a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
too much, right?
I decided that I wanted a hotel that was going to be close to the con.
That's always a good idea.
Because originally both my parents were going to go. My daughter came, and I actually originally didn't want to bring her, but I'm glad I did, actually, because she had a lot of fun. I was thinking, man, I just kind of want to go as a fan. I just want to be able to not be a parent and just be able to, like, go through the dollar bins and look for those, books. And my dad was great. He actually watched her quite a bit for me while I was up there.
But how wonderful was it to see her pose with the cosplayers?
Oh, she had a great time. I mean, she was taking pictures with the cosplayers, and the thing about taking a little girl to a con, she's not so little anymore. She's
10?
11. About to be 12.
Wow.
Well, no, not about to be 12. She just turned 11 a few months ago. Is that comic book people are just thrilled to see little girls in the cons. To see that fan base expanding is, and they go out of their way to be extra nice.
Mm-hmm.
To a young female. I mean, yes, there is a contingent in the con that's somewhat maybe not all that welcoming to women in general, but it seems to me like there's been a lot of inroads to try to make everything more accessible.
I do think a lot of people are recognizing the problem.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, I saw. I picked up a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 33, which I've wanted forever.
Mm-hmm.
Found a great deal. Found a book that would be rated fairly high grade, but for one major flaw in the cover, but the rest of the book is in fantastic shape. And the flaw in the cover is kind of ignorable, really. And then I paid my $60 to get Stan Lee to scrawl his John Hancock across the cover, which is pretty cool. I was joking that I'd really like to get both Steve Ditko and Stan Lee.
Good luck with that.
Well, I mean, I screwed up because I got Stan Lee to sign it first. Steve Ditko. The best I could hope for would be Stan Lee's name crossed out with Steve Ditko's written in underneath it.
Just cover that part with your hand when you show it to him. Like, I don't trust anybody with this, Mr. Ditko, so I'll just hold this.
I had been to Philly Wizard World a number of years ago.
Yeah.
It was a much bigger affair this year than it was as far as I remember it.
It probably when did you go last?
Oh, I want to say Adir was about 7 or 8, so it would have been 4 or 5 years ago.
That's about around the time Wizard Magazine kind of folded, wasn't it?
It's possible. I mean, but it was...
I wouldn't be surprised if the con got kind of scaled down for a while.
We wandered in on Sunday afternoon, didn't pay to get in.
Wow.
Walked up, and that year they had some of the cast of Battlestar Galactica there. They had Edward James Olmos. There was no like rope line or anything. He was just sitting at a table. We walked up to the table, chatted with him for like a good half an hour. Paid my $50 to get him to take a picture with me and my daughter.
Yeah.
He was nice as could be. He was just such a sweet guy.
Mm-hmm.
Chatted about Battlestar Galactica, chatted about how I used to watch him when I was a kid in Miami Vice.
Yeah.
He was very interested in my daughter. He was just like, well, have you seen any of my movies? And she was like, I don't think I have. And I was like, well, I'm eventually going to let her see Battlestar Galactica. He's like, but not now, right? And I was like, no, not now. No, she has to get older before another couple of years from now, and she'd probably be able to watch it. But he actually made recommendations as far as which of his movies he thought were good for kids.
Are there any?
He recommended there was a movie he did a number of years ago where he played a math teacher. And
you're talking about Stand and Deliver?
Stand and Deliver, yes.
Okay.
I think that was the title.
Yeah.
That he felt would be a good movie for kids to see. And she loves math, so she'd probably dig it. And Selena.
Oh yeah. I forgot he was in that.
I mean, he was very kind of grandfatherly. I mean, just really nice. And then we got to, we went over and we saw, what's his name? Timothy Mayhew? Chewbacca?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Who was also very cool.
He's still like 10 feet tall or something.
And we bought like an 8x10 picture of him, and then he was like, would she like to get a picture with me, and didn't charge us for it, and that was kind of cool. Nice. I mean, but we were able just to walk up to the tables and chat with people.
Wow.
Contrast that with this year. All of the signing tables were on the other side of the con room. The con room was huge. I mean, they went through halls like A through E in the Philly Convention Center. The signings, appearances side of the room had a lot more security. The booths were roped off, so you couldn't just walk up to the table. They actually had booths that were shielded on three sides with like black cloth. And then you had like metal rope lines that you had to go through to get to the actual stars. There were quite a bit more stars this year. You know, they had Shatner. We saw Shatner, Captain Kirk, do a Q&A, and he was fantastic. He was so funny.
Is he still like just as peppy as?
He's 81 years old, and I swear he doesn't look a day over 60.
I just had that realization like a couple months ago. It's like I was watching him on that new Factor Freaked or whatever show he's doing on Sci-Fi Channel. I was like, oh my god, this guy's almost 82.
He's just a live wire. I mean, and I know he gets a lot of grief for being kind of a dick, but he was incredibly friendly to the fans.
Whatever he's doing right.
And yeah, I mean,
I'd like to make sure I'm like that. I'd love to be that
funny.
guy.
My father actually, were I a little bit younger and were I a little bit quicker off of my seat, I would have gotten into actually asking him a question, but I got too far back in the line and I realized I wasn't going to get there. My father's a huge William Shatner fan.
Yeah.
And it would have been cool to get him to, acknowledge my father in the crowd or something like that. My father actually worked on the USS Enterprise. He worked on the elevator hangars for years. I mean, he's fine now, but he's had a couple of bouts with cancer, and I'm pretty sure it came from working on that ship because it's like a radioactive nightmare.
I can imagine where that would come
They
from.
just decommed her this year, so she'll be going off to her final fate, and they're supposed to come up with a new Enterprise.
Okay.
What else? Who else did I see? I was going to see, they had a Firefly cast reunion. Nathan Fillion couldn't make it, but they had Jane and
Gina Torres there.
Gina Torres was there, and they had Kaylee. So it was Adam Baldwin, Jewel State, and Gina Torres.
Yeah.
We didn't actually make it to that in time because we came out of Marvel had a Breaking Into Comics panel that I went into, and I actually got to chat with an editor, and I don't want to talk too much about that because
we don't want to talk about
might be something that happens there, might not. We're kind of keeping it on the down low. I did actually get some copies of all of the current issues of the End and the Free Comic Book Day special.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you gave him that?
Yes, I did.
Hey, I wrote something.
You're in that. Yeah. So maybe, hopefully, if he didn't vomit on my first issue and then toss the rest into the can, he might have gotten to that one.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Thanks for hooking a brother up.
I'm waiting to kind of hear back and see if he had any feedback on the book, and we'll see if maybe something happens, but it's probably not likely at this stage.
Yeah, I had some experiences like that. I went to this horror convention, Blood at the Beach, because Lindsay had a table selling her plush dolls, and there were a number of celebrities there, and it was funny how open to the public it was. Like, I mean, Anthony Michael Hall was there, and he was just kind of walking around,
All right.
dressed in a suit and holding a beer, and he was a little spritzed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just like.
Well,
Hey, how's it
and the
going?
thing was,
And he was casual cool, casual drunk.
couldn't take pictures with Stan.
Yeah.
And from what I understood, talking to some people because we didn't get there until Friday, there were people that had been there.
Well, Stan is so old, he might like
Well,
disintegrate.
there were people that
with
were there
light
on
of-
Thursday that said Stan was taking pictures with him, no problem.
Uh-huh.
And there was one guy that said basically the photo ops people, the people who were running the photo ops,
Yeah.
because you pay. The whole thing is a little bit frustrating because you can get these VIP passes.
Yeah.
And the VIP passes are like $600-700
Yeah.
for the weekend, and they allow you to basically skip lines. So they set up the booth, and the con wasn't cheap for a normal Joe Schmo slub like me. I mean, I still paid close to like $90 a ticket for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel cost me an arm and a leg. I mean, I got like a discount on the hotel, and I still ended up spending close to $600 just on the hotel for 2 nights.
Yeah.
The trip up there, and then buying books. I picked up a few Silver Age, some older Silver Age, mid '60s Marvel comics that I was pretty happy to get a hold of. I picked up my copy of the ASM 33, and I paid for Stan to sign it. I mean, I spent easily $1,000 going to this con. And I'm standing in the line, and for like 20 minutes, they just hold us in the line and let VIP people come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they hold us in front of the rope line, and you see the rope line begin to fill up with VIP people. And the VIPs are like 30, 40 deep now, and so you're just like standing there going, well, when the hell am I going to get in here? And you really don't get to talk to Stan.
Yeah.
He was taking pictures on Thursday, and some of the photo ops people, you'd pay a lot of money to get a picture with Stan Lee. Some of the photo ops people that were running that came out and apparently had words with Stan.
Mm.
And this is hearsay, but this is what I heard, that after they came out and talked to him, he wasn't allowed to take pictures anymore.
Mm.
You weren't allowed to take pictures of him except of him signing your book.
Mm. Which is fair. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean...
That's kind of all I would really...
From what I understood, there were people who had gotten to talk to him earlier.
Yeah. Is this the convention where that little girl was cosplaying as Stan Lee?
No, that was another one.
That was another show? Okay.
And I'm sure they're a cute little girl, and they probably, their hearts melted a little bit. But it was very... I got to basically say, huge fan of Spider-Man. Thank you for your work, sir. And he was like, I said, Spider-Man's my favorite character. I'm a huge fan of your work, sir. And he was like, thank you. Spider-Man's my favorite character too. And that was it. I wasn't getting a signature to make the book worth more. The book's going to go on my wall. I'm never going to sell it.
Yeah.
Really, I paid the money to get a chance to talk to Stan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's just very commercial.
It is, yeah.
It was a lot of fun, though. I mean, there was a lot of other, the cosplayers make the event. There were lots of, I got to talk to Linil Yu a bit. I met another artist in the lobby of the, hotel who was an independent artist, does pinups.
Mm-hmm.
What is his name? Jay Fife does kind of photorealistic drawings, pinup drawings. And I told him about, he asked me what I did, and I said, well, I among other things, I do a comic book. And he was like, oh, let me see your book, and I showed him the book, and he was very complimentary of the book, and he said he was gonna donate a pinup, so I'm hoping to see that in the next couple of weeks from him. Excuse me.
That'd be cool.
So, that was Philly Was a World. It was a great time, but it's a lot of money.
It is.
And then going on, if I had gone as a creator, the table would have cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $350, $380.
That's a kind of average price. I mean, Heroes Con is about around $300.
Yeah.
I know New York is more expensive.
Yeah, we're looking at, I think $950 for a booth.
See, that's
And we're planning to do New York Comic Con. We're hoping to hear back from them. But we're not going to make our money back on New York Comic Con. It's just not going to happen. It's too much money that we're putting out. We're doing that basically for the experience of doing a larger con like that and to meet as many fans as we can.
Yeah.
And maybe make some new fans.
That's something a lot of people ask me about doing comics, and I don't know how many realize like how much money goes in. If you're really serious, there's a lot of money that goes in.
Well, I know how much money you spend. I don't spend that much money because I do photo manipulation off of my own photography, so I'm not paying an artist.
But I mean, just outside of the fact that that I have artist and printer fees, there is going to shows, going to cons, putting yourself
you gotta get out
there.
there.
You just can't do your comic and just wait for the entire universe to knock on your door and go, hey, let me see this awesome comic that you did. No, you have to introduce yourself. You have to go. I mean, you have to, like a politician, go out and campaign. You have to tell people how great your comic book is. And also take in the fact that people didn't come to that con to see your book because they don't know who you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of people at the con that didn't, that were just sitting there by themselves at a table hoping that someone would talk to them.
So, I mean, that's something that people who are interested in self-publishing or, creating their own publisher.
I saw a Virginian at PhillyCon, and I was excited to see him. I saw him at the last VA Comic-Con, and I forget his name, but his company is called Twisted Wire.
Oh, yeah?
And what he does is he makes, this takes so much dedication. He makes these little twist tie sculptures.
Yeah.
He takes wire and twists it and creates like Batman or Iron Man out of twisted wires.
Yeah.
And he had a table up there. And
nice.
it sounded like he was doing pretty good. We'll probably see him at the next VA Comic-Con. I'll have to find out. My father was totally geeking. My dad wanted to buy one of the. I mean, the statues are reasonably priced, I think, for the amount of effort that goes into them. Anywhere from, $75 to $150 to $300.
Yeah.
And they take weeks for him to build of just this obsessive twisting of wires.
And I have to know. I'm pretty sure living with somebody who creates something like that. With Lindsay. I mean, Lindsay is always creating her dolls and always sewing. Like every day, she's sitting on the floor by the couch, like sewing on some new project of hers. Either something somebody's commissioned or something she has in the works as an original project. So I'm pretty sure that guy's sitting on his floor in front of marathons of Big Bang Theory and
man. It was cool to see him out there, and like I said, we'll probably see him at the next VA Comic-Con. Yeah. Our immediate Comic-Con plans, we are doing the next VA Comic-Con single-day event, which is July
something
7th, I think. We'll get back. Check our Facebook page, check our Twitter. We'll have announcements for that. We're going to be doing the next two single-day events, and then we're planning to do the 2-day event. I don't know if Justin will be able to be there because
I actually, when I called you from work.
Oh yeah.
Asking like, hey, when are those days again, man? I don't know why I said it like that, but that's how I said it. And
like a junkie. I mean, Jones into the fix. When are those days, man? When they bring it in the stuff,
So anyway, I actually as soon as I hung up with you, I turned around and my manager was right there, and I think
and she was like, "Why are you making personal phone calls while you're at work?"
Yeah, to talk about your comic book con. So yeah, he's actually pretty cool, and none of those days were really conflicted days.
Excellent.
So we're going to be able to do it. And I just found out yesterday.
Yes.
The Chesapeake Central Library's Fantasy, which is their sort of mini convention of science fiction, is a go. Now, it's been back and forth because the gentleman who used to run it got a different job and moved on
in his career.
Yes. And
accepted other opportunities in the information gathering field.
Wanted to spend more time with his family, the whole thing.
Like that.
But so I wasn't sure if they were going to be doing it.
Steroids to lift those books,
but I talked to the woman in charge, and she told me yes, we're go. She gave me a form. We had to fill out a form this time around, which I already did. So we got a table. Those are free tables, and the event
what's the date on
free.
that? August.
It is August 3rd.
August 3rd. Come out and see us at the Chesapeake Central Library.
Central Library.
Which is off of Cedar Road?
Yes, Cedar Road. And it's a great show.
And we'll have all of our books there. We'll be signing books. We'll try and break Forrester out of the the experimental science laboratory that he's currently been held in. Um, and we'll get Vince out there. We won't have Bob there because it costs too much to ship Bob from wherever the hell he lives now in Ohio, Cincinnati or Cleveland or wherever it is. So we won't have Bob there, but we'll be there. We'll sign books. It'll be a good time. Let's talk some news. Talk some news. There's been a big thing in the news lately. I say a big thing in comics news, which means like 4 people have heard about it. But Paul Jenkins has been. Paul Jenkins, who's a notable DC Comics creator, worked for Marvel for a while, did the Inhumans series.
Oh, yes, yes.
Jay Lee did the art on that book, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Also, kind of the creator of the Sentry, if I remember correctly.
Yes, the incredibly popular Sentry.
I actually really like this. I think the Sentry is one of the most interesting things that have come out of Marvel in years. Fascinating character. And, it was a hoax and people got mad about it, but I actually never got mad. Especially what Bendis did with him in
a lot of
Dark Avengers.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people got mad about the hoax part. I didn't. It's like, well, I don't know. I didn't think that was a big deal. I thought it was an interesting way to sell it.
Absolutely. Paul Jenkins has recently announced that he is done with Marvel, done with DC, going to work exclusively for Boom. And since he's made that announcement, he's been kind of letting these little asides out about his work, specifically with DC.
What? No one has problems working for DC.
And this came out of Bleeding Cool. And I kind of go back and forth on Bleeding Cool. Sometimes I feel like I go a little too far, but this was an interesting story. Paul Jenkins wrote Bleeding Cool and said, this is from a Bleeding Cool interview. Says, I would like to relay an editorial comment that I received near the end of my time writing the Dark Knight New 52 series. In one scene, I had written that Batman is sitting on a rooftop during an intense conversation close to a person who has been injured. The editorial comment on this was this. We are not sure that you are getting the character because it's common knowledge that Batman never sits down. Batman doesn't ever sit down, apparently. I'm pretty sure that I've seen Batman sitting in a chair or something in front of the computer at the Batcave.
Nope, he's removed all of them. He doesn't sit down.
They retcon chairs in the DC New 52. Is that the newest casualty? Chairs are the newest casualty of the DC New 52. Let's talk about the DC New 52.
He does not sit. How dare you malign him? His toilet is a combination bathtub toilet thing.
Who the hell are these editors? He does not sit
down.
Who are these editors that are coming up with these? Where are they coming? These are movie people, right?
It has to be. The thing is, I've been thinking about this more and more as I was reading the New 52 for that first year. It felt more and more like film versions of these characters that are not quite good. You know how you always see like a film version of a character and you think, oh, they make some really stupid, weird decisions there. Why did they do that? This feels like
I know that many of your viewers on the Manos channel, maybe not as old as we are. We are getting up there. We're both essentially middle-aged comic book fans. I don't know how it happened. I looked up one day and I was old.
I know.
But it really does feel to me like there's. I made this observation on a Reddit thread a while back, and apparently somebody else had made a similar observation on iFanboy, and I haven't actually heard the episode, so I don't know what they said. And if I'm stealing this from somebody else without actually having stole it, I kind of feel like the DC characters have all died, and the New 52 is like Time Warner's comic book version of Weekend at Bernie's, where they're just propping up Batman and like making him walk through the mall so that there's Batman, he's still around. And I've talked about this with you about Green Arrow. And I have no problem with the Arrow series. I enjoy it. I think it's good television. Mm-hmm. I've been reading the Arrow New 52, and it's not a bad book. It's well written, but it's not Oliver Queen.
He's dead.
It's like, I don't know if he's dead.
Well, I mean, to me, he's dead.
I mean, it's like they kidnapped him in the middle of the night because he was too old.
Yeah.
And I hear, I saw a comment on Reddit the other day where somebody was talking about, I'm a big Redditor. Not big as like anybody cares that I'm on Reddit, but I spend a lot of time on Reddit.
You like it, is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm a fan of Reddit. And somebody was talking about late '90s Spider-Man, and he was married to a supermodel, and he was like, and he had a good job, and he was like, as a younger reader, I just can't relate to Peter Parker's life, and I'm like, as an older reader, I can't relate to almost anything that DC's doing. They've taken. I know you have basically completely sworn off at the DC New 52.
Yes.
You don't buy any. You don't have any DC titles in your pool.
No.
I have two. I'm still reading Swamp Thing, and I'm still kind of hanging on by the edge of my fingernails with Animal Man. But I think Animal Man is probably going to become a casualty soon on my pull list. They did the same thing with Constantine. Middle-aged men are no longer welcome at DC, and that's the message that they're sending out. Unless we're middle-aged men that want to stare at Starfire and her
then
lack
go
of
right
a costume.
ahead. Yeah.
But unless you're like an old pervy dude, they're not interested in us as readers, and I mean that's fine. But we're the guys that spend money on comic books. A lot of these younger guys maybe aren't paying for their books. Maybe they're downloading them off of, the Pirate Bay, or I don't know where the kids get these.
You kids and your fax machines and hula hoops.
And that's fine. And at the same time, you don't see Marvel retconning Thor to be 15.
No.
Not that Marvel hasn't had some missteps. Superior Spider-Man.
Brand New Day. Brand New Day was pretty much the DC reboot style.
I didn't actually read Brand New Day. I heard about it after the fact. I had actually kind of quit reading Spider-Man by that point. I picked up, and maybe it's my fault that Dan Slott murdered Spider-Man, because I wasn't reading the book anymore.
I was wondering who did it. It's your fault.
Maybe it could be me. It could be because I wasn't buying it.
And
I'm
your
know.
friend. How could you do this to me?
I don't really get the whole. And it was interesting because I went to the Marvel Now panel at PhillyCon, and those guys all seem. Who was up on there? There was C.B. Cebulski, who's Marvel's talent scout.
Yeah.
One of Marvel's talent scouts, I believe. He's the senior vice president in new development or something like that. Really nice guy. Phil Noto was there. Linnea Yu was on the panel. There was another editor whose name escapes me. I'd have to look it up. And a new cover artist that they have that has been working there for very long.
Oh.
But all of those guys seem really, really impressed by Dan Slott. They seem to think highly of him.
Well, Dan Slott...
And I don't really know his work that much.
I know his work through She-Hulk, actually. I was a big fan of his She-Hulk run, and I thought he nailed that character the way I thought she should be written in a book, and hadn't been for a long, long, long time. I think he found the perfect marriage between, superhero stuff and courtroom stuff, and made it really fun and still exciting. And then I turn around and he's on Spider-Man. So, after Brand New Day, I stopped reading Spider-Man. And there have been times during his run before Superior Spider-Man, I had gone back and forth, maybe I should pick this up. Maybe I should go against my my ban. Because Spider Island got rave reviews.
I haven't read Spider Island. I've not read Spider Island yet.
Yeah.
I kind of fell off of Spider-Man I was reading him throughout the Civil War, and and I liked what they did with Civil War, but then I kind of dropped off of reading comics for a little while for budgetary reasons. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the next thing I knew, I heard about the Superior Spider-Man, and I picked up the book and I checked it out, and I bought 2 issues, and then I had to take it off my list because the writing just. It makes me want to go back and check out some of his other work. The fact that these guys thought so highly of him, apparently he is the go-to guy for Marvel continuity in those offices.
Yeah, he is.
Him and Tom Brevoort.
Yeah, he is actually. I do know of this from reading his work in the past, that he is very at times referential to Marvel history. In some of his works, he did a little bit with She-Hulk. I know he does it with Spider-Man. And yeah, I mean, he's from what I understand. I actually used to follow. No, I still do follow this YouTuber Air Slash. She's even like conversed with him, just as a fan. He's like talked to her,
And I mean,
and he's been very very cool and polite.
right. I mean, I know there's a lot of younger readers out there that are like, well, you guys just don't like it because these are our versions of these characters. But the thing of it is that these characters have a 75, in some cases 75, 80-year history of tradition and stuff that has flavored and created what these characters are, and that has been entirely removed from the equation. There were no superheroes in the DC universe prior to what, 1990?
Yeah.
19. What's the year? What's the cutoff point for it?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they go back like 5, 6, 10 years, maybe tops.
Well, you mean the DC 52 continuity?
Yeah.
It's a 5 year. It's 5 years.
5 years. So
2007? Yeah.
And nothing prior to that. So no Golden Age, which means all of Starman gone. Quite, easily in my top 5 books for DC, the Starman series.
Yeah.
By James Robinson. They're bleeding creators left and right. And it's entirely, I mean, James Robinson is a class act. And he's not talking about why he left the book. He just left, James Robinson just left Earth 2.
Yeah.
That's the latest on the chopping block bleeding of creators.
Oh.
James Robinson's written for DC Comics for what? 10, 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
Gone.
Maybe he had Batman sit down or something.
All of the work that James Robinson created,
yeah,
divorced from DC continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you can go out and buy the books, and they're great stories. And if you haven't read Starman, I absolutely recommend that you do. Continuity be damned.
And I recommend Sandman Mystery Theater.
Sandman Mystery Theater.
As a side note,
also doesn't exist. Matt Wagner, brilliant book. Brilliant, one of my favorite DC books of all time.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
I'm actually going to be talking about that. I think next week on Old 52.
I mean, and Earth 2, I was kind of enjoying it, but at the same time, it felt like the thing that really made these characters interesting wasn't necessarily their powers or their personalities. It was that they were your grandparents' heroes. That's all gone. There were no heroes in World War II. I don't even know if there was a World War II in the DC New 52 continuity.
I'm sure there was.
I mean, I doubt. I don't know that there was a Vietnam. I mean, I don't know that anything exists beyond 2007.
One of my problems was, and I recognized this early, within I think maybe that first month, was nobody seems to know what canon is. I mean, I hear one thing in one book and another thing in another.
No, well, from what I understand, the editors are just doling out. Like you go to them and say, "Well, did this happen?" And they say yes or no. And honestly, it kind of feels like they're kind of making those decisions on the fly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure writers are being told from whatever specific editor they're talking to.
Is it possible to tell a good story in this continuity, in this new continuity? Sure, I'm sure it is. Yeah. I understand that Snyder is killing it with Batman. I am not reading it currently. I go through cycles with Batman. I'm actually catching up on Grant Morrison's run right now, which I'm enjoying.
Where are you in that?
I picked up the first trade paperback, and I'm slowly working through them. I just went through. I had missed all of Hickman's Fantastic Four work, so I just went through all those.
Okay.
And I just picked up the first Morrison trade paperback. I think it's Batman and Son or something like that.
Okay.
It's over there somewhere. I'll pull it out and look at it after we do this. So yeah, I mean, DC continuing to piss off creators. Batman doesn't sit.
That's new. I have not read that. That is hilarious.
What else is in the news lately? Alan Moore.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk. This is one of the things you wanted to talk about. Actually,
this is one of the things, and this was a little bit ago, but we weren't doing a podcast then, and it was not so long ago that.
And actually, to be honest, it is sort of timely because
it's kind of on my mind because I just saw Stan.
Yeah. And Stan, I have not read the new book about Marvel Comics.
There's a new Marvel book. What's it called?
I think it's Marvel: The Untold Story.
Marvel: The Untold Story. Let's see here.
I think think that's the
Because
title.
I want to go out. I'm going to run out and get this. Yeah, Marvel: The Untold Story by Sean Howe.
And I have not read it, to be fair, but I have heard
$18 on Amazon.
There's quite a few sides of Stan Lee we see in the book.
So let's talk about this. So Alan Moore was asked, or told, somebody asked Alan Moore what he thought of Stan Lee or something like that at this convention showing. I don't know what conventions Alan Moore shows up to. I got to think that they're like, I don't know, like Warlock conventions. And comic book fans just show up going, we want Alan Moore, the comic writer, back, not the Warlock.
He brings his sorting hat. And
look, he's freaking Alan Moore, and when you've written what Alan Moore has written, in my opinion, you can do whatever the hell you want. You want to pretend, you want to decide that your beard is running your life, that's fine. If you want to, I mean, honestly, I don't care what the man does. He wrote Watchmen, and I know a lot of people are like, man, Alan Moore, who cares about Alan Moore? I am not in that camp. He wrote Saga of Swamp Thing. He's written some of the most beautiful comic work I've ever read.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan. My comic book store, the guy that owns my comic book store, can't stand Alan Moore. He's like, Alan Moore.
Like his stories? Or
just so you know, means something that we haven't decided, language that we haven't decided whether or not I can use on this podcast.
Okay.
Somebody asked Alan Moore what he thought about Stan Lee, and Alan Moore tells a story where some radio personality was like, hey, man, I was interviewing Stan Lee the other day, and I hope I didn't screw up. But we asked Stan Lee if there was somebody in comics that he's never gotten to talk to, that who would he like to have a conversation with in the comics industry, if he could talk to anyone he wanted to talk to. And Stan Lee said, I'd like to talk with this Alan Moore fellow. I've heard a lot about him. And Alan Moore went on the record basically to say that he doesn't have a lot of respect for Stan Lee, that he feels like Jack Kirby created most of the characters that Marvel makes their bread and butter on now. The way he says it is that there was a reason. He's like, when you're young and you're reading comics, Stan Lee is the greatest writer in the English language. But then you get to be older and you get to work in comics and you start to realize that Jack wasn't really all that jolly. And that Steve wasn't sturdy, and there was a reason why Stan was smiling. You and I have talked about this before, and the Primal Paper Comics creators have all kind of taken positions on this to one degree or another. What do you think? What do you think the role of Stan was in the creation of these characters? There was a big hubbub about the Avengers movie, and Jack Kirby's name wasn't on it.
Yeah, which it should have been. He co-created that title with Stan, and I imagine Thor was mostly his. That's the thing I always of back in the day when I was a fan. That when you look at also some of the characters from his collaborations with Stan, you can kind of get a sense of which characters were his. I like Silver Surfer, Thor, because he always was kind of thinking in those kind of fantastic realms. Actually,
did Kirby create the Silver Surfer?
I always, it was either him or
I thought it was Buscema, but I could be wrong.
Maybe it could have been Buscema.
Actually, I think you're right. I think Kirby was actually the creator of Silver Surfer.
Because I think Kirby created Galactus.
Kirby created Galactus.
Galactus was more of his, and
Galactus was Kirby's take on God, basically.
Yeah.
You couldn't really do anything but so evident back in the '60s with that kind of thing. But
yeah.
But
here's the thing. I don't know. I suppose maybe it is getting kind of popular to stand to task for some of these things, but I tend to believe situations like this, the truth is always somewhere in between.
Well, here's the thing, and you see this a lot in movies. Any movie that you go to see in a theater has been written by maybe a dozen people, and only certain people get credit for the writing on it. You're looking at Marvel Comics in the '60s, which was a much smaller operation. Kirby has gone on record in interviews, and he's gone now, so it's not like anybody can ask him. And maybe his memory, he was quite a bit older than Stan. and maybe his memory was a little bit tainted by anger. But Kirby has said in interviews that Stan Lee was an office boy, that he was the office manager. He made sure that the artists had pencils and paper clips and But on the other hand, there are pages where Stan is scribbling notes in the side, giving story direction.
I think calling him an office boy is
hardly
accurate. I think that's more anger talking.
And at the end of the day, it's not like Stan didn't also get screwed by Marvel, at that time, and I think Marvel's gotten much better about treating creators better, than they were in the late '60s and the early '70s.
Well, I think you've seen an evolution of that with creators standing up for creators' rights and talking about that, and then there've been the lawsuits.
But at the end of the day, if you're gonna write for Marvel or DC, and you're gonna create characters for them, those aren't your characters.
Yeah, you have to just you have to understand it.
And that's what you give up to write for those guys.
There's a funny story I always think about. I don't know if you heard about this with Matt Groening when he went to get an interview for the Tracy Ullman Show to do these little cartoons for the Tracy Ullman Show to sort of fill in for the bumpers.
He created The Simpsons because he didn't want to give up the rights to From Hell.
That's right. He was going to pitch them From Hell.
Life in Hell.
Not
From Hell. Very different book, From Hell.
Yeah, he was going to pitch them. In case anybody doesn't know, he was going to pitch them. Life in Hell, which was his bunny rabbits going through adventures and weird kind of situations and stuff like that, which he had been known for at that point. And then I forgot how it just dawned on him, or somebody mentioned it to him, oh shit, I'll be selling this. So in the waiting room before he went to go meet with the producers of the Tracy Ullman Show to pitch it, he quickly drew the characters and came up with the concept. It's okay, I can sell this. No problem. And the rest, of course, is history.
I mean, Stan's 90 years old now.
Yeah.
And I had a grandfather who passed away a little while ago who was around the same age. He was 92.
Yeah.
And he used to tell stories, and there's something that happens when you get into that age where I don't want to say you're on autopilot per se, but you're on kind of an autopilot when you start to tell a story, and you've told that story before 1,000 times. And you're not even thinking about the story anymore. So I think a lot of the stuff that Stan says now should be taken. It's something. Yeah, he's a 90-year-old man.
I agree. It's a little unfair to take him to task for details.
That said, I think Stan could have been a little fairer in the sharing of the credit.
Yeah.
With guys like Steve Ditko. I mean, Steve Ditko walked off of Amazing Spider-Man because he didn't feel like he was getting the credit he deserved on the book.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man was a creation of multiple people. Stan Lee, a little bit of Jack Kirby, although the original story that Jack Kirby pitched was very different.
Yeah.
Steve Ditko's people that were around Steve Ditko kind of contributed to it.
Well, there was the Marvel method, which...
and then when you see Stan over the years, though...
Yeah.
And he's asked about Spider-Man, he's like, I created Spider-Man. Now, Stan, there was a documentary some British guy did, I forget the guy's name, tried to kind of pin Stan down on it, on whether or not he felt that Steve Ditko deserved co-creator credit. And, I mean, Stan said that he did, but he obviously didn't feel the same way. Stan feels like, look, I came up with the concept, I came up with the name, I created the character. I paid somebody to draw the character. Well, he didn't pay anybody. Marvel did. And that's the thing that people forget about Stan. Because Stan is kind of the ambassador of Marvel Comics over the years, people, when we were kids, we thought Stan Lee owned Marvel Comics.
Yeah, we thought as a kid, I thought everything had to go through him. I even Because at the time, like all the way up until the 80s, every comic said Stan Lee presents.
I mean, and you and I will hopefully run into these problems someday because you and I both would like to write for the big two someday.
Yeah.
Not exclusively. I mean, I want to always do my book, and I know you want to always do Red Knight, and we don't want to sell those characters to anybody.
No. I'm doing Red Knight for the rest of my life.
I'll sell the movie rights to the Ends in a heartbeat. If anybody out there wants to make an Ends movie, cast I don't know, Jean-Claude Van Damme as the Peregrine, whatever. I don't care. I won't go see the movie, but I'll happily take a bag of money so that you can go off and make a crappy movie using my characters. But I'm still going to own the comic. I'm still going to,
Megan Fox would make an excellent accelerator.
So, yeah, Stan's been in the news a little bit about that, and he was on my mind because I just saw him. And, this was probably my only opportunity to see him. Look, he's 90 years old. Stan's going to pass then.
Yeah, and you know what? My philosophy is there's a lot of debate on who created what, and I do think that there is some responsibility of creating these characters that were probably like there's a whole bunch of people who worked on this, and Stan's method of getting the work done kind of lend itself to that, and I think his philosophy is, it started with him, therefore is the creator, and I do wonder if in conversations, he would like have some regret that maybe if things could have been maybe a little bit different. I don't know. I'm only theorizing on that, but I can tell you without a doubt in my mind that Marvel would not be Marvel without Stan Lee, and
and I don't disagree with that.
I totally understand what Alan Moore says. I totally understand what his detractors say.
I feel that Jack Kirby got screwed.
Yeah. But I mean, if there was no Stan Lee, there would be no Marvel. And that's just it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. On the same hand, however, and in listening to Jack Kirby interviews, and basically there were points in Marvel's existence where the company was about to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Kirby would walk in, he would come into work, and people would be freaking out, oh, we're going to go out of business. And Jack would be like, whatever. Jack was a tough guy.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this about him. He was like he was very much like the Clancy gang, Clancy Street gang, like one of those characters.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that came from somewhere.
He came out of I think it was Brooklyn, or Queens or something. He came out of a rough neighborhood, and he used to tumble. He used to tussle with guys all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just said tussle like I'm in like a 1930s newsreel.
I don't know what you're talking about, you palooka.
He went over the editor. He said, "Look, just give me a couple of weeks," and he would sit down and create characters and books, and keep the business and company because his stuff sold.
Yeah.
And he never really got the due that he deserved until after he was. I mean, towards the end of his life, he had to go and sue Marvel to get his artwork.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that lawsuit where they didn't want him even selling his original art at conventions.
I don't know the exact details of it, but I've heard him talk about it in interviews. Look, I think Steve Ditko got screwed. And you don't. Did they put Ditko's name on the Amazing Spider-Man movie? I don't know.
I don't remember.
And it's more in my mind because I've recently gotten a bug to pick up, those mid to late '60s Silver Age Marvel titles that these guys were doing.
Yeah.
And Jack Kirby essentially created the medium. Him and Will Eisner, essentially created the medium that you and I are working in today. I mean, the visual language. Mm-hmm. That we use in our books, and maybe you more so than I am because I'm doing something a little bit different with the photo manipulation. But even then, I mean, the way I'm framing panels, the way I'm, going from page to page to tell the story, actions taking place in the gutter, and that is Jack Kirby.
Mm-hmm. If I have to talk about an influence, like. The first year of Amazing Spider-Man has been an influence on my first year.
And the thing of it is, it's those old Marvel Tale reprints.
Yeah. Those were big deals.
taught us.
Yeah.
We learned at the feet of those masters in those reprints.
Yeah.
And Stan being Stan, if I had to be pinned down on it, this is what I think. I think Stan, for the most part, created these characters. As far as the initial concept, the idea of Spider-Man, which was then put into the hands of these other creators and molded. But he was the spark. I don't know how much of those books he wrote.
I do think he is much more the creator of, say, Spider-Man than Bob Kane was of Batman.
Well, Bob Kane's another, yeah, sure.
I mean, I think Bob Kane was pretty much off that, I don't know, much earlier in history has been...
Bill Finger has not gotten the due credit.
Yeah, but I think Stan Lee was, much more...
Sure, I think, and I don't know that I feel like Stan... This is the big difference. Like Bob Kane, I feel like Bob Kane ripped people off that created Batman.
Yeah.
I don't know that I feel like Stan was actively trying to screw anybody over. This was the way that business was done in the office that he worked in.
I think anything that Stan has done in the past that was questionable, I think he was just trying to make the best.
And he was a self-promoter.
Whatever situation he was in.
And is Stan Lee a self-promoter? Yes, Stan Lee was a self-promoter in an age before social media.
But I mean, look where Marvel is because of that. I mean, Marvel is because Stan Lee was such a promoter. And they even still to this day kind of mirror that style, even though he isn't always front and center out there anymore. I mean, Marvel... Stan Lee, one of the things he did was competing with DC. I think he was very skilled at making Marvel very personable to people. Like, Marvel is you and me. Marvel is, us creators and you fans.
Well, and this is the thing.
And he was excellent at that outreach, and that's a big part of who Marvel was and still is today.
But if we look at Stan Lee in the art and the literary evaluation of comic books, which I think you can do.
Yeah.
I think that comics are a vibrant literary medium, and have contributed importantly to what media is today.
Yes.
If you look at Stan Lee's major contribution to the form, Stan Lee, if he was the person responsible for making these decisions, making Spider-Man a flawed character, making characters like The Thing, he is the father of deconstruction in modern comics. Mm-hmm. If he made those decisions. If he didn't make those decisions, and it was Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko making those decisions, then they deserve the credit for that. And to me, that's the major question about Stan and about Marvel at that time, was who was the person that kind of invented deconstructionism in comics that people like Alan Moore eventually hang their hat on. Mm-hmm. And that's the question that I can't answer here. And that's the only thing about it. As far as who gets the credit and who gets the money, I don't personally care about that. But I do think about contributions to the art. And until I learned more about the fact that there was some disagreement over what Stan had done, I had always considered Stan to be something of a genius for coming up with that. And it does bother me a little bit that we don't know who deserves that credit.
And I don't know if we really truly know. I
mean, most of the guys are dead.
Yeah,
except for Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko's still around, but he's basically like a crazy hermit in his office in New York writing
Dogs and Sailors. But
that's mean.
No, I love you, Forrester. But this is stuff that kind of existed before social media. So I don't know. Some of this stuff will be lost.
I mean, the thing of it is at the time nobody knew that they were creating something that was going to last for this period of time. they were writing. I mean, comics were a throwaway medium back then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even Stan was constantly. I've heard him talk about how he was always prepping to write the great American novel, and little did he know, he was creating. I don't know, like a whole generation of comic fans, and look what's come up in since the 60s.
I mean, and this topic will probably come up again, time and time again. People will continue to argue this.
People still fight about who wrote Shakespeare's plays. For God's sakes.
A lot of people say Shakespeare didn't write his book, so I think they're fucking. Excuse me. I keep forgetting I'm not supposed to curse. I think they're idiots. I think Shakespeare wrote his plays. I'm not entirely positive. And part of it is the medium and how books are created. I had a conversation with you. I drew a picture of Red Knight with the horse on the chest. Am I a part creator of Red Knight? No, I don't consider myself to be.
See, and that's the problem. It's a literary and visual medium that can very rarely be done by one person.
If you start getting that big Sony money, for Red Knight, you and I might have a conversation. Hey man, I'm kind of a co-creator of Red Knight.
It's like, oh well, hey, I gotta
talk to my lawyer. What are you reading right now? Is there any what books are you liking right now?
Well, actually, I noticed this was sitting
X-Men #1
on the couch. I really like this issue.
Do you think it would be an insult if they called it X-Women?
I thought about that, and if they had done that, it would have been an opportunity to have a new title that they can sell. But I don't know.
I'm liking the book.
I loved it a lot. And actually, here's the thing. I know some people were talking about, oh, man, women. Like, that's some big deal.
It's a little weird.
Well, I didn't...
I'm not saying that I have a problem with it, but it does seem a little bit contrived.
Actually, I never did feel that way, and this is why.
There are no dudes, like, just hanging around when Jubilee calls that would be like, we'll go too? Or the women are like, this is a girls' night out, fellas, you stay home?
X-Men has always been unique, and you could probably contribute this to Chris Claremont, that a lot of super teams have had like
strong women.
Well, a lot of super teams have had one woman on the team.
Well,
or
to
two.
be fair, X-Men has like a cast of like 200.
Exactly, and so most of the teams will have like, I don't know, 3 or 4.
Bend in my comic book.
Sorry, forgot it's not
don't
mine.
Bend it.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Just because it was written by Bendis, don't mean bend this.
No, he didn't. Yeah, but
did Bendis write that?
No, he didn't.
Oh yeah,
it's the one he didn't write.
Oh okay, that's right. You're right.
But there's so many women on these teams.
I don't have
to be
a problem
honest,
with it.
A full team of women really doesn't strike me as too strange.
I don't have a problem with a full. Well, it does strike me as a little bit odd. It seems kind of contrived.
Because here's the thing: like Scott Summers is gone, doing his own thing. Professor X is dead. Wolverine is on every team.
Absolutely.
And the school is run by pretty much Misty and Rachel Summers and Storm. It doesn't strike me as all that strange because
Kitty Pryde, Wolverine, Bobby Drake is a teacher.
Yeah.
Beast is on staff and an important member.
Yeah.
Do you not feel that taking a book and only putting women on the team, and I don't have a problem with women superheroes. I don't have a problem with stories about women superheroes.
Yeah.
At all. And I bought this book. I'm enjoying the book. It does feel a little bit contrived and a little bit counterintuitive that if we want to feature women in a book, we can only put women on the team.
I just don't see that.
Like, they're making a statement they're making some sort of statement by only putting women on the team.
Well, do you feel that way about the New Avengers title?
Are we talking about Mighty Avengers?
No, the New Avengers title.
That's the newest Avenger title. I was going to ask you about this because they made the announcement.
No, not a New Avengers title. The title New Avengers.
New Avengers. Well, they weren't all women.
No, they're all men.
Were they all men?
Yeah, the entire team is men.
Carol Danvers. Carol Danvers was on that. No, she wasn't.
No. There's another New Avenger. God,
I haven't seen it.
I hate. Let me just say
the fact that they can't.
I hate when titles have the word "new" in the title.
Right.
I absolutely hate it. It's one of my one of the biggest pet peeves. Because it's always confusing, and a book only stays new for
currently
so long.
there is Uncanny Avengers.
Well, okay. Let me just clarify this. There's a new title called New Avengers, and it features the Illuminati. that Bendis had put together a few years
There's
back.
like 6 different Avenger books right now, right?
Yeah, yes.
I'm not reading this one. I
Okay,
don't know
this
this one.
okay. Well, this is the one with Tony Stark and Reed Richards and Black Panther.
Okay, I am reading this one, but it's not called New Avengers.
Yeah, it's called New
It's
Avengers.
called.
It's called New
This
Avengers.
is the one where they're dealing with the.
It's the Illuminati Avengers.
This is the one where they're dealing with. You know what? It is only men on the team, isn't it? And there's
Yeah.
only men on the Illuminati.
Yeah, and no one has talked about that.
Yeah, I kind of have a problem with that. Why is that?
And that's the thing is no one even goes, "Oh, all men. That's weird." But when they do a female title, you go, man,
Because the
that's
Illuminati was Professor X, but they just replaced him with the Beast.
weird.
Iron Man, Captain America was one, but they kicked him off and wiped his mind. Memory of it, of
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
having been on it, which is going to come back and haunt Tony Stark.
I don't know how that
Someday.
could happen.
Reed Richards, Namor. Yeah, it does seem kind of strange.
Yeah.
Who came up with that? Was it Bendis? Bendis didn't come up with it.
Well, Bendis came up with the Illuminati
I don't think
concept,
he-
but
I don't think he did. I think it
Hickman-
actually pre-exists them.
I think Hickman is writing this title.
Hickman is writing the title, but there weren't any. I don't think we can lay this at the feet of Hickman to blame.
No. And hey, I don't. I don't have a problem with the all male
Well, let me ask you
Avengers
this:
team, but my issue is that no one's talking about that.
who would you pick?
For
Give me and if you can't think of one, then this is evident of a problem in Marvel. What woman would you pick to be one of these Illuminati who are supposed to be basically the secret masters of the world, right?
see, well, that's the thing.
Doctor Strange is the other one.
Yeah, Doctor Strange. There are no female masters of the world, in that I can think of, and I think that kind of lends itself to a bigger problem, but not just in the Marvel universe and comic books,
And that's-
but also
and
socially in
society
the
in
real world,
general.
society in general.
And that's interesting. Who would you pick though in the Marvel universe? Can you think of anybody?
See, that's the thing. I've been thinking about lately with quote unquote strong female characters, which is almost becoming a cliche phrase, is a lot of strong female characters don't seem to run their worlds. They seem to live in the worlds of the male characters. And I think when we talk about like what female character could be in the Illuminati, and you and I, who are huge Marvel dorks, I can't think of anybody. I can't see She-Hulk on that.
Madam
team.
Web?
Maybe she could. I mean, she's a potential fill-in for Professor X. Although to me, he's more of a. Isn't she a mutant? Is Madam Web a...
I don't think she is.
I think she's just a psychic. Although, how do you make that distinction?
Agatha Harkness
Maybe.
had kind of a master planning kind of role to her.
Yeah.
Huh.
See?
You know what? This is an excellent. I don't even know if we're going to have listeners. This might just end up being you and me talking for however long we've been talking, and nobody's listening, or they were listening and it went on too long, and so they stopped listening. But hey, Primal Paper podcast listeners, write into us and let us know who would you pick in the Marvel universe as far as a woman character who deserves a seat at the table of the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting question, one that I hadn't given a lot of thought. Be interesting to hear what people say about it.
Yeah.
Mighty Avengers
Yeah, Mighty Avengers, what you think of.
is coming out.
That's a new title.
Greg Landart.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's pornorific.
I just don't like his art. I mean, I don't know if he traces off. I've heard that he traces off porno people. I just don't like the way his faces look.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big book with a lot of diversity on it. Some interesting characters, and I've been a fan of how Marvel's been handling that lately. I think we need more black superheroes. We need more Latino superheroes. We need more minority superheroes.
We do.
In these pages.
We need to reflect society a little bit better.
We need heroes for little black kids to look up to.
And DC was doing this a few years ago, and then they kind of like stepped back on it. Like they replaced during their legacy period, they were coming out with Chinese American.
I don't know why there isn't a freaking Shang-Chi book out. And Marvel, if you're listening, I want to write it.
But
that book would kick ass.
Man, if
you could do this whole like Bruce Lee thing, I mean,
I know,
it'd be such a good book.
And
you could bring like freaking Iron Fist and Luke Cage in, and this.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do a whole Daredevil that would make it. Shang-Chi hanging out with Spider-Man, or not Doc Ock, I guess it is. So Spider-Man's dead.
Yeah.
And
I would definitely write a Cassandra Cain book.
So the team has the Doc Ock Spider-Man, who Reddit refers to as Spock, because he's Spider Ock.
Yeah.
I chuckle every time I hear that. The Blue Marvel, who I'm not familiar with, I don't know the character.
Neither do I. That's either an obscure old character that hasn't seen the light of day in decades, or somebody new.
Luke Cage.
Meltdown has changed her name to Spectrum. Meltdown was
she the old Captain Marvel?
Yeah, she was
Monica
the
Rambeau?
first female Captain Marvel.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
I didn't even know that her name was Meltdown now.
Yeah.
Iron Fist apparently is going to be on the phone, so that if they need him, they'll call him.
That's cool.
Jessica Jones apparently will be in there. It'd be interesting to see somebody else write Jessica Jones.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I think
right.
this might be the first time we've actually seen that.
Who's writing this book again?
I don't know. Talk about something else and I'll look it up.
Oh, yeah, Jessica Jones, who I'm always a fan of.
I miss Alias.
And me too. I don't know. I just wish that book was still continuing. Oh, yeah, the new Power Man on that series. And so it's interesting. I don't know if I can...
White Tiger?
White Tiger, yeah. Who is, if I'm not mistaken, is still the Latino woman?
I just started watching one of these Spider-Man cartoons. Al Ewing.
Okay.
Al Ewing. I don't know his work. I just started watching one of the Spider-Man... the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, and where he's actually like kind of teamed up with like a Young Avengers style kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I enjoyed it, but she takes a big role in that comic or in that cartoon.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's.
I think that's that same character. Yeah.
Seems well. I mean, the White Tiger from the '70s.
Well, he died in Daredevil and was replaced by her.
Al Ewing is a British comic writer who has mainly worked in small press. Wrote for 2000 AD. He wrote Judge Dredd.
Oh, wow.
This is interesting. I don't know his work all that. I've heard the name, but I don't really... Is this the same guy? Let me make sure it's the same guy.
I imagine so. But I'm excited to see what goes on with Luke Cage. I'm actually surprised Bendis isn't doing a solo Luke Cage book.
I think they wanted to get him off of Luke Cage. I think Bendis has done what he can for the character.
Really?
This art just looks terrible.
I just know he loves that character.
Yeah, I really want to buy this book. And if it's written by a British comic writer from 2000 AD, I mean...
And there's another
probably
Avengers.
Be into that.
There's another Avengers title coming out, too.
Infinity?
Yeah, Avengers AI.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Which I think is coming out of it's coming out of the Age of Ultron. So they'll be pretty much... I've lost count of how many Avengers titles there are.
I know that I am reading... I'm not reading Uncanny, and because I got really kind of pissed off about the whole Charles Xavier Brain thing. I'm really not happy about the whole Professor X thing anyway. I think it was a waste of the character. Although what they're doing with Cyclops right now, as a result of all that, is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Bendis is kind of killing it on his X-Men titles. What am I reading? I'm reading both of Hickman's books in Avengers, and that's pretty much it. And I was kind of interested in picking up the Mighty Avengers, but I don't know if I can get past Greg Land's art. I don't understand. I don't understand how Greg Land keeps getting work.
I can't give you a proper explanation.
And I try not to say mean things about fellow comic creators. Even if they do get paid a lot more than I do. But I work in photo manipulation. I have no problem with photo manipulation, but there seems to be an objectification of women I wasn't a big fan in the '90s of the extreme female poses.
Oh, you mean the what was it? The bad girls trend.
Yeah.
Which every once in a while I see like a bad girl's pose. Like wow, what decade is this? It's like
yeah, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Like no woman like stands in that weird.
I was willing to give it a shot, and then I saw the first cover, and the cover's terrible. I just yeah.
I don't know if I can stretch my budget anymore. I mean, really, it's like Marvel keeps coming up with like
great new books.
Great new books.
What's your favorite book right now?
Daredevil.
Daredevil?
I
like Daredevil. I don't know.
It's close competition for me for Hawkeye.
Hawkeye's pretty good.
And Saga.
I really enjoy Saga. I think Thor is the best book in the market right now.
I'm not buying Thor only because of budgetary reasons.
Really? Well, yeah. You haven't read any of it?
I haven't read any of it.
Oh, okay. Well, once
and
you get
it's
off
not because I'm choosing not to because I hate it so much.
I don't know where we are time-wise, but this is an excellent. It's time for us to get off the mic, and I'm going to go pull out some copies of Thor because he hasn't read Thor yet.
Yeah.
Which I think is hands down the best work being done in comics today. I think it is going to rank up there. I think his run on Thor is going to rank up there with the best work on Daredevil, with Miller's work on Daredevil. I think it's going to be a defining chapter in this Thor story. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for coming out to the Primal Paper Comics podcast. Justin, you're the host. You should probably say something.
Yeah, I was just about to say thank you for coming out to the Primal Paper Comics podcast. And I hope we can do this more often.
Well, it doesn't really cost us any money to do this. I mean, so.
Yeah, and thankfully we live near each other, so we can do this all
Maybe we can get
Vince
or Bob to chime in. Or
yeah, either have them up on Skype or bring them over. Just do the show. Talk about what's going on with Primal Paper Comics and comics in general.
And we want to respond. We'd like this to be somewhat interactive. So if you guys if you have things you'd like to hear us talk about, post in the comments and let us know what you're interested in. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the first Primal Paper Comics podcast. Tune in next month when we return. And until then, make yours Primal Paper Comics.